Welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast, featuring James Creviston and Luke Lacoy. Yeah, we're about to get clean up in here, so clean your mouth out with a bar of soap and get ready for the Clean Comedy Podcast.
Everybody, it's James. This is the Clean Comedy Podcast, and today we have no guests. No, it's just going to be me and Luke Lacoy talking about clean comedy. And why are we talking about clean comedy? Because we get a lot of questions. I'm going to read a question that we got from somebody, and we're going to talk about it because it's a question that comes up a lot. Like, how far can you go with clean comedy? So let's get it started. Luke, welcome to the show. Welcome to being on here. You ready to talk about some clean comedy or unclean comedy, as it may be?
Yes, I am, and it's an honor to be in the presence of the Simpsons house.
I know, right? Oh, dude, we were supposed to be a guest. Guess the thing. It's okay, whatever. Yeah, guys, I was gonna say just
Oops.
guess the background, but
It's a Family Guy.
blew that one. All right. Okay, so here's what we have. Hey, James, I wanted to know if it's important to have clean sets so that you can use them in any situation because most of what I've written is unclean. I'm interested in how unclean is safe at clubs and what is the line. So you and I have both done stand-up at a number of clubs, and I would say that there is no line for how unclean you can be. I've heard the F word about 150 times in the same 5-minute sets. I've heard people talk about body parts, genitalia, bathroom maneuvers, criminal acts, misogyny, racism, like racist terms. Man, I could probably the gambit of everything. I guess the limitation is for that is how much can the audience take? Because you could say whatever you want, right?
Yeah, and I think too, there's different themed shows at comedy clubs. So if it's like a 4:00 Sunday show that I forget his name. He's a newscaster and he does comedy. Well, he's a newscaster and does comedy, and he does, I think, like a early Sunday show. It's knowing like your show and your venue. I think that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, for the most part, like, go to the Comedy Store at any time. Any material goes. It's all fair game.
Yeah, unless they specifically say this is a clean show or don't do this thing or don't talk about that thing, you're really pretty wide open. And that's what I do like about comedy is that anybody can say what they want. But here's the caveat with that. You can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean people are going to laugh at what you say. It doesn't mean people are going to like what you say. And that doesn't mean that people are going to enjoy you being on stage. So if you want to be a popular comedian, if you want to get gigs and get booked and be on TV and whatever and make money, as we've learned from Jason Love, Robert G. Lee, I mean, a ton of these comedians that we talk to, their thing is clean because clean is what pays, right? Yes, we live in this world where everything goes, right? You can find anything on the internet, anything on TV, anything wherever, but there are still people who don't want to hear that stuff. That middle America has that very still conservative Christian value, and that's honestly the majority of people who buy stuff, right? We think like, oh, if it's cool in California and LA and it's cool in New York City, it's going to be cool everywhere. But that's not the case. There's a reason that Taco Bell and all the other restaurants test all their stuff in the Midwest because those are the people who buy everything, right? That's 90% of America is in the middle of America. So just think about that. I mean, the richest dude in entertainment isn't Tom Cruise. It isn't Vin Diesel. It isn't even The Rock. You know what it is? Tyler Perry. Do you know what he makes? Conservative, very down to earth, very clean black movies, right? That's his bread and butter, right? He would go do like church groups and very conservative areas all around the South. They called it the Chitlin circuit. And he would produce plays, and then he would record those plays and sell them as DVDs. And then he would turn those things when he got enough money into real films. And the Medea films are very family-centric, very conservative. Yeah, there is some language here and there and some sexuality and whatever and stuff. But he is like by far the richest. I mean, he owns a whole studio. Did you know that, Luke?
I did not.
He owns a whole studio with I believe it's a 80% or 3/4 replica of the White House.
Wow.
A
That's
full
amazing.
like built White House. Yeah,
That's great.
it's amazing. But that guy made his money because he does things a specific way. He didn't target New York people. He didn't target LA people. He didn't target those kind of people. And that's not saying that those people aren't the people that you want to target, because you want to kind of please. Your goal is to get as many people to be your fan as possible. But I've always heard the 1,000 fan rule, right? If you have 1,000 people who are your fans that you can get to pay you $1 for something, right? That's $1,000 for a person. And if you get to pay $100, then I think that's $1 million. But I don't know the money. I don't know how money works. How much is that, Luke? Is that $1 million?
I don't know my calculator.
I'm pulling out the calculator, guys. I got to pull it up now. So it's going to be 1,000 people times $100. That's 100,000. Well, still, if you could sell $100 worth of stuff to 1,000 people every year, you can make $100,000. And I'm pretty sure that's what Jason Love does. I mean, that guy, I can't think of a better mentor, creative business comedian person in the world. I'm trying to get there, right? I'm with Comedypreneur. I'm trying to do all those things. I'm writing another book. I have a class that I'm teaching that it's going to be recorded and edited and put on Udemy and a bunch of other places. But I get also these weird messages where people are like, who are you? I'm me. I didn't say you had to listen to me. I'm just saying I'm working hard. These are all the things that I've done. I've been successful. I've made money. I'm just passing it on to you so you can use it if you want to. I don't understand the level of hate that comes my way sometimes.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, because I'm thinking about this, if someone does like write mostly material that is, let's use Jesselnick as an example, you know, like that's your voice, that's your tone, that's kind of what you're into. I mean, definitely the market is there and you can have a fan base, but I mean, the downside to that is that you're limiting the amount of places you can do comedy and the amount of venues and I see it like harder. I see if you're not writing clean material, then it's kind of putting a limit on where you can perform and who you can reach. You know, because not to say everyone has to write clean. There's definitely people that, you know, I mean, I like dark humor, but I'm not going to write it. But there's definitely, you know, different types of humor out there.
No, and I'm a huge Jesselnick fan too. Jesselnick and Daniel Tosh, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that kind of stuff, but that's not something I can do. But also I realize my wife doesn't like that kind of humor. Like she will watch Tosh Point oh or whatever, but she doesn't like Daniel Tosh's stand-up. She doesn't like Jesselnick's stand-up. She doesn't like it. And there's a lot of people that just don't like that kind of humor, and that's just how it is. But I think you're right. Every time you step a little bit you step more into a gray area, you lose a little bit of fan base, or the ability to lose a fan base is there. I always think about Jeff Foxworthy, right? He was one of the biggest comedians that I remember hearing about growing up, and you could listen to his stand-up anywhere, right? And people did, and he sold millions. Like he was a millionaire, and he was just a dude who came up with one catchphrase, right? You might be a redneck. That's it. One thing. He did that thing over and over and over again until he wore it out. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm a millionaire now. But now because he had a clean act, he was able to host, you know, who are you smarter than a fifth grader and a bunch of other different shows and stuff, and get these gigs because he has this clean cut persona. Now, the other flip side of that is Bob Saget, who stopped doing stand-up when he got Full House because his stand-up wasn't clean. So he didn't want to go out and do stand-up and expose himself. So then later on, what's funny is I remember my wife said, "Oh, we should watch Bob Saget." And I was like, "Oh, he's dirty." And she's like, No. He was the guy on Full House. I think you're confused." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we watched the stand-up, and she's like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, "Exactly. That's why he didn't do stand-up that whole time he was on Full House, is because it would have thrown off his image and thrown off the show." So you have to be really aware. Now, people like Roseanne Barr, everybody knows her persona because that's the same persona she does on TV, right? Tim Allen, same thing. That's a persona he did on TV. That's a persona he did on stand-up. People like that, when your stand-up backs up who you are that way, then go for it. But you're probably never going to see Anthony Jeselnik's sitcom. I'm sorry. I mean, I would love that. I would love to see Anthony Jeselnik. But even his show that he did on Comedy Central didn't last that long because it's too dark for too long, and people can't handle that for that long. The reason Seinfeld was so good is because that's who Seinfeld was. He complains about stuff, even if his new stand-up special. He still complains about mundane stuff. You know, he does the great and sucks bit, and it's hilarious. And you go, yes, that's true. Great and suck are very close to each other. And that's exactly the guy who he is. You know who he is. That's why he has comedians in cars. That's why Seinfeld did so well. I mean, that's just who he is. And so what really is the big determining factor is who you are on stage, right? You can create a whole other character if you want to, right? You can do a Andy Kaufman thing if you want to. You could do a Rodney Dangerfield thing if you want to. Whatever it is, that little act that if you want to be a different persona, you could totally do that. Or you can go up there and be yourself, and that's what works for a lot of comedians, right? You know who Joe Rogan is, you know who Burt Kreischer is, you know who Tom Segura is, you know who Jerry Seinfeld, you know who these people are, and that's because they're stage persona. And it doesn't matter whether they're clean or dirty. It's really about branding yourself and being true to your comedic voice. That's the number one thing. If you find your comedic voice, you can do anything.
Yeah, and I forgot. I mean, we've talked to a lot of people about this, and like kind of the overall advice that we get is, you know, when you're first starting out in the early years to write clean, because I mean it is harder to do, and it's a better kind of like exercise to get that that training in to be as funny as you can. I mean, kind of, I don't want to say with like the least amount of material, but it's harder, you know, for sure. And then, you know, I mean, once you have the basics down, and you know, you can write a joke and you know the structure, and then yeah, if you want to create like different characters to start to play with, that's a fantastic way to do it. You know, go to like make a character up, go to open mic, and then do your alternate personality or whatever. Try it out. I mean, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I thought about doing that. I thought about doing that as like a joke one time, is just writing for a whole different character that's not me, and just going to open mics and doing that character and not revealing who I really was, like a wig, hat, like everything, like all the accoutrement, a whole different person, and go in there Andy Kaufman style and just do my own thing and see how it goes and just see how that plays. I don't know whether I'll do that or not. I might do it at some point. I've written jokes for this character. He has a name, he has a backstory, he has all the stuff. I just haven't decided whether I'm going to do it or not. But I think you're right. The big thing is, like you said, learn to write clean. Even if you don't want to perform clean, learn to write clean, because you can. The phrase I always heard was, you can always dirty up clean, but you can't clean up dirty. So if your jokes rely on shock humor, on you dropping F-bombs or, you know, talking about your genitals, and that's what it's based on, you can't clean that up, right? You're not going to be able to clean that back up. But if you have clean material, it's funny on its own, and then you want to throw an F-bomb in there, then you want to throw something else in there, boom, it's right. You're going to go from here up to here. It's just going to blow up. So do that, right? One of my favorite comedians of all time that I grew up, and the reason he's my favorite, or one of my favorites, is because I grew up watching him and I didn't know anything about stand-up at the time, but I love Andrew Dice Clay. And he would do nursery rhymes, right? And all his nursery rhymes were dirty. And I would repeat the nursery rhymes because we all know the nursery rhyme, right? We know the clean, normal, sane version of the nursery rhyme, and then we get Andrew Dice Clay's version of the nursery rhyme. And I love them. And sometimes I'll even be around my house and I'm like, hey, you know, like what, just like I'll do. For some reason, he strikes me as that thing, and that's because we all know the clean version, and then he took the clean version and upped it, and that's what made it cool. That's what made it interesting. Now, is he one of the greatest comedians of all time? No, for sure, not at all. I've seen him do some more stuff recently, and you know, at the time period, he was the man, right? Andrew Dice Clay sold out everywhere, but now that's kind of an antiquated bit that he does, and for nostalgia, he's great, and I do still love him. I'm not knocking him at all, so Mr. Clay, if you ever see me, don't punch me in the face. I wasn't talking, I swear. But it's just a different style. That's not a style that works anymore. What would you say is the hardest part of writing clean jokes for you? Because it is pretty easy to write dirty jokes. Like, I could probably sit down and write 100 dirty jokes real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like doing innuendos, and I guess the hardest part is finding that line between, appropriate and inappropriate. I think that's the challenging part, because there have been shows where I thought I knew where the line was, and I wrote a joke like at that line, and then I do the joke in a show and it's like it was clear I crossed the line. So it's yeah, just yeah, knowing where that in between is, I think, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I have a serial killer joke that I do, and it's about a 80% success rate, and that 20% of the time you get the pullback from the audience because you say the word serial killer and then people go, ugh. But it's so prefaced so well that people, once they hear the punch after that, usually they come on board. But sometimes you say the word serial killer and people go, I'm out. I don't want any part of this, you know? So that's probably my most line toed joke, I think. Yeah, I think that's probably the most. And then at the end of that joke, that's where I grew up. So once I establish all of my history, I can get away with that joke. If I open with that joke, people would hate me forever, right? But when I do that joke normally, then people laugh. Like, okay, I get where he's coming from, what the point of this is, who he is, what his background is, right? You can't go around. It's like, I don't know. It's like people, like, they want to get mad at what you're about to say, but they haven't waited for the punchline yet. They've only heard the opening bit. And so that's why clean is more important, because if you can do something clean and get the punchline in, the problem is you don't want to offend people. And too many comedians say, oh, I want to say whatever I want to say, and I don't care if it offends people. Well, you do, because you want to get the laugh, and you want to get booked, and you want to get on shows, and you want to do stand-up. So if everything you say is offensive and rude and demeaning and racist and misogynistic and a trope and just like terrible, no one's going to want to put you on stage because no one's going to want to hear you.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like an example I thought of. There was like a 90s rap day on the radio, and there was like a Yin Yang Twin song that came on, and like
shaker.
Some maybe and like every other word was you heard like the bleep, and like the whole song was like, so you couldn't understand the song, and a lot of information was cut out. And I feel like that's the same way with jokes. If it has to be like censored like that, then you're losing 70% of your information that should have been going to the audience, forming their pictures in their head, and when they envision the joke. So yeah.
No, that's a good point. That's the thing that always, and I'm not trying to complain about it, but there's a lot of people tell Tinder jokes or date jokes, and then they talk about their genitals or whatever. Like, people don't want to hear that, right? They're eating their linguine and drinking their wine and watching you, and then you talk about, and they're like, all right, well, I don't want to eat anything now. I'm thinking about this guy's, whatever, and this girl's whatever, and so, and it's like, okay, well, you have to think about what you say, how it affects people. And I get that, like, stand-up comedy is freedom of speech, and I 100% am for that. You should say whatever you want to say, but you have to also be aware of the consequences of saying whatever you want to say. And I think that's the biggest point of the question that they asked is, what's the limit? Well, there is no limits per se, right? There's no one's going to come up to you and say, hey, you can't say that. Now, there may be someone after the show who says, hey, you can't say that joke, or hey, you can't do that voice because you're white. And I'm like, yes, I am white. But if you listen to the 9 other jokes about my life that led up to that joke, then you will understand why I can, or why I was able to, or why I feel like I should be able to do that voice. And it's not in jest. It's not making fun of somebody. It's actually vice versa. In that joke, even though I do the voice, I'm making fun of white people in that joke. And so there's a very funny line there that if you listened for it and you weren't just jump to the conclusion, oh, he's going to do this voice and that's so racist. I've had people come and say, hey, you can't do that voice. I'm like, yes, I can. Nobody else has had a problem with it. Just you, or maybe, I think I've had it 3 times. Somebody said that, hey, you shouldn't do that voice. It's like, okay, that's your opinion. I've never had it. Everyone laughs at it because they know what I'm making fun of. And it's not making fun of the voice. It's making fun of the white people into that joke. And so, and my experience with all that stuff. So there is no line. Anyone who tries to tell you there is a line is wrong. And anyone who tells you that you have to do things a certain way is wrong. We never say you have to work clean. Never, ever, ever, right? I've never said, hey, you have to work clean. If you don't work clean, you're never going to work and blah, blah. Never, never said that. But working clean gives you the best chance at making money, getting booked, going on the road, getting a sitcom, getting TV shows, getting gigs that are normally not going to go to other comedians, right? I love Joe Rogan. He's probably one of my favorite people in the world. I listen to his podcast all the time. But he established his own podcast. He established his own stuff because of the things he says. He knows that someone will try to censor his voice, and that's what he's trying to stop. So be aware that what you say, someone may tell you, if they're the club booker or if they're the show booker or if they're running the show, they may tell you, hey, you can't say that. Like even Tom Papa has a joke about telling a joke about his genitals, and he didn't say anything bad. He said the word balls, and he said it, and they said, hey, you can't say that. He's like, I've said it a million times. It's the least offensive version of that. And they wanted him to say, I think, if you have kids, block yours. I think they wanted him to say scrotum, I believe. And I was like, how is that better than ball? Like ball sounds just like, hey, like basketball, soccer balls, baseball, like whatever. But I mean, it's very mundane, and the gatekeepers, the people who are in charge of clubs and shows and bookings and all that stuff, they're going to tell you what you can and can't say. Well, if any other comedian tries to tell you you can't say that, don't listen to them. I mean, there's plenty of comedians who get away with. I mean, George Carlin said the 7 dirty words, right? That you can't say on TV, but he said them on stage, and everybody loves that bit. So do what you feel. Be true to your comedic voice. Be true to the comedy you want to do. Just know that if you do clean, and I would recommend, even if you want to be a blue comedian and do dirty jokes, have a clean set, right? Even Jason Love and Robert G. Lee and all those guys say, yeah, there's people who want to hear blue material, but having the clean material gets me in the door. Having the blue material on top of that gives me a little bit of extra stuff. So do both. Be creative. I'm not going to do it. That's not who I am, and that's my style of comedy, and that's okay. But I know a lot of comedians who can do blue and who can do clean, right? We have Jason Love who can do that stuff. We have a bunch of other comedian friends of ours who could do both clean and blue, and that's great. So do that. But don't feel limited. Don't feel like you can't ever do blue comedy or quote unclean comedy. Luke, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, kind of just, and then too, if you are working blue material, just remember that anything can go on the internet. So like someone could be recording one of your sets, tweets. I don't think they ever disappear after they go out. So just, be comfortable enough having that out there forever.
And that's true, right? Because that stuff comes back, and I mean, well, if you want to, you could talk about like guys like Shane Gillis who got on SNL, and then something he said on a podcast came back and got him ruined, and and that's the thing is you can say whatever you want, but there are always consequences to what you say. Whether that's getting the laugh, that's a consequence, the positive consequence, or getting a boo, or people walking out, or someone yelling at you, or who are flipping you off, or heaven forbid, rushing the stage and trying to fight you, which, oh my gosh, I don't know what is going on in those people's minds. But that's what you have to deal with when you do comedy, is that there's going to be people who love what you say, people who hate what you say, and people just who go, I don't care. That's freedom of speech. You can say whatever they want to say, and even if they don't agree with you or whatever. And I'm that person, all right? I'm the person like, hey, maybe I don't like their comedy, maybe I don't like what they're saying, but they have every right in the world to say it because the First Amendment, and I am 100% in support of that. So say whatever you want to say, but just know there are consequences for everything you say and everything you do.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, like there's specials that I haven't enjoyed, but I'll watch the first time, kind of like, it's not for me, but then I'll watch it the second time because I want to study their technique.
Yeah. I mean, even like Eddie Murphy said that he regrets some of the stand-up he did in his early stuff. Keep in mind, I own both Eddie Murphy stand-up specials. I love them both. I don't care. I think they're hilarious. Yes. Is it out of date? But yes, you can't compare historical context to today, right? Because back then, what you could say was different than what you could say now. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying it was a different time period. People said different things. That's just the way it is, So just be aware, whatever you say, like Luke said, the internet exists and it can come back and bite you in the butt. And that sucks. But that's comedy, right? That's how we work. And so enjoy it. Do the best that you can. Work as hard as you can. Write the best jokes possible. And like I said, write clean if you can, because you can always dirty it up. So if you learn to write clean, you're going to have a step above everyone else, because there's a lot of people out there that are, no offense, sorry guys, but are lazy writers. They just write the laziest, like Jason Love would say, low-hanging fruit jokes, right? And yes, he wrote a coronavirus ditty, song, whatever, parody, which I loved, by the way. But it was low-hanging fruit. And there has been, how many coronavirus songs have you seen on the internet? Yeah, I'd say like about 100, right? Yeah, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. So do your best, write, get better, prepare, work on it. That's all you can do. Just keep working at comedy. That's what we're here for. Hopefully, whatever we said here helps you out. Hopefully, you like what we talk about. If you have any other questions, you have anything that you want to know about, ask us. Leave a comment, leave a note, email us. You can email me, jamesdcreviston@gmail.com. Luke, what's your email?
LukeLacoy@gmail.com.
LukeLacoy@gmail.com, right? And you can find him at Luke Lacoy on all the social medias. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. We love answering questions. We love trying to help you, give you advice. As some people would say, who are you, James? Who are you to tell anybody? Hey, I'm a comedian who works. I work. I go and do stand-up. I make money. With comedy. So I don't care. Like, you can be mad at me all you want. That's on you. That's your own thing. I'm not going to apologize for it. I feel bad that you're mad about it. I don't know why you're mad about it. I'm trying to help you make a buck. I love you guys. I know there's comedians that are way better than me. Way better. So, all right. Thank you again. Have a great one. Sorry about the rant. Hope everyone loved it. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah, we're about to get clean up in here. So clean your mouth out with a bar of soap and get ready for the clean comedy.